Hey, what's up, everybody? Craig Smoak here with the Baylor edition of the 365 Sports Weekly newsletter, which you can sign up for at 365sports.video. If you're a fan of a school in the Big 12 or a fan of the league and you want videos and stories on each of the 16 teams delivered into your inbox each Wednesday, sign up at 365sports.video. And I am here to talk about one of those 16 teams, the Baylor Bears, now 2-2 after a 27-24 home loss this past Saturday night to Kenny Dillingham and the Arizona State Sun Devils. 2-2 overall, but now 0-1 to start off Big 12 play with that loss and a game that was there for the taking, a win that was within reach and within sight. But ultimately, when all was said and done, another gut-wrenching loss at home and another missed big game opportunity for Aranda and his Bears. A wildly frustrating game, a game where this much maligned defense, which has actually held up better than maybe some expected, especially with some of the early season doubts that you had accumulating, a defense that actually played pretty stingy, got several stops, limited the damage, kept this team in the fight, ultimately did not get help until it was a little bit too late. And then when they finally got help, they finally couldn't themselves hold up anymore. And a cascade of turnovers plus a really brutal penalty late in that game leads Arizona State to the walk-off field goal as time expired, and a big, huge W for Kenny Dillingham and the defending Big 12 champions, reigning Big 12 champions, last year's Big 12 champions, however you want to refer to them. The Sun Devils don't quite have that aura or mystique. They're very much a team that looks like last year's Sun Devils team this time of year. Talented, but still sort of finding their way. Still very much in that probably contender status, but just not in that lead pack along with the Iowa States, the Texas Techs, for example. But Baylor, I think, had an opportunity to be in that group, and now they have to take a little bit of a step back. Just 0-1, but now I think after that loss, just kind of a kick in the gut and gives you that feeling of what's in store now. And it seems not quite fully similar, but similar in some ways to last year, being about a month into the season, particularly to that Colorado loss, just kind of feeling like, here we go again. We're hanging around 500, another big game loss, like Aranda's got to go. This team's not going to win this or that. I still think there's very much everything still in play for this Baylor Bears football team, even with 2 losses. But I think what really comes out of this is less big picture as far as this team in this season, and really big picture as far as just what does the future hold? I mean, it's a lot of angst and anxiety about Dave Aranda and yet another big game loss at home, and the fact that it's like pulling teeth to get people to show up to begin with. But now when you do keep continuing to rally them and lure them in with new uniforms and fireworks and drone shows and all these things and big TV broadcasts, you're not delivering on your end of things. I mean, it's one thing to try and coax people into the building, but when you sell them on the show, you sing them into the building, you got to send them home happy. And that's not happening nearly often enough. The 2 biggest games so far this year at home, Auburn and now Arizona State, both disappointing losses. The saving grace so far this year, your win at SMU, which was a come-from-behind victory. You rallied at the very end of that game and are able to send it to overtime and finish it off. But you are this close to being 1-3 on the year. And that sort of balancing act, I think, is what is a concern for a Baylor fan right now is, yeah, you're good enough technically to be like 3-1 with a win over Arizona State, had things gone a couple of places differently. And you're also bad enough or average enough to be 1-3. So you find yourself in the middle, which is a better place to be than 1-3. But where do you find yourself in the weeks ahead and moving forward? Well, you do find yourself as massive favorites against Oklahoma State coming up this weekend, but you should have found yourself on the other end of a win after this past weekend. Turnovers. Your defense holds up. Your defense keeps you in the game. But Josh Cameron, a pair of super uncharacteristic fumbles, Sawyer Robertson with an untimely interception, and you really just put your defense in a hole and put your team in a bind with those turnovers. I saw Josh Cameron's mother commenting on, how he felt after the game. And again, these things happen. You don't blame him and him alone for the loss. It definitely wasn't only his fault. It was a combination of factors, and you don't expect something like that to happen again. It was just very bad timing on a night where you needed to hold on to the football to give yourself a chance to win, and you're unable to do that. The Sawyer interception and the moment in which that came just can't happen for a big-time star quarterback. You can't just put your defense right back on the field and in a position where they're already, by default, going to give up more points right away. And it's just a matter of, well, don't give up the touchdown, but surrendering field position, surrendering points, and just kind of handing it over to Arizona State on Saturday night over and over again was ultimately the biggest culprit in this game as to why Baylor's not talking about being 3-1 and 1-0 in the Big 12. Controversial personal foul there at the end of the game that helped put Arizona State farther down the field and ultimately into position to kick that game-winning field goal. That obviously a part of the outcome as well, but not as much as the turnovers played into things. So, I mean, that's where you start with this game, where those mistakes adding up, costly mistakes, ultimately tipping the scales, which were pretty balanced between these two teams, into Arizona State's favor, protecting the football, winning the lines of scrimmage. These are the simple things that are repeated every single week because they are the simple things and the obvious things that win football games. And so when you hand it over the way that Baylor did, it's not a surprise they're walking away with the loss. So that's kind of where it starts. I think outside of that, there's still plenty of reason to believe that this team can go and win a bunch of games. Just having a conversation a few minutes ago, they're going to be favored in a lot of the games they play the rest of the way. They'll be favored against Oklahoma State. They should be favored against Kansas State. Probably not against TCU, but that's not some unwinnable game. At Cincinnati, we'll see at that point. I think you'd be favored over UCF. Utah, probably not. At Arizona, we'll see. That kind of tips both ways. And Houston, kind of a we'll see as well. Point being that they're not going to be out of any game they play in the rest of the way. They'll be favored in a lot of them, and they very well have a chance to win every game the rest of the way. So I don't want to make the same mistake as last year and feel like because you've eaten a couple of early losses, the season's already over with, as we saw by the end of last year. Even though the bowl loss left a bad taste in your mouth to end things, the run of wins into that was a lot of fun and inspired some hope. And 8-5 could have been better, but 8-5 was a nice enough season overall. 8-something is still very much possible. 9 is going to be a lot harder to come by now at this point, eating your second loss, but another 8-4 type of season is not out of the question. 9 with the bowl game, 10 if you could find your way into the Big 12 title game. All of that, even with this loss this past weekend, is still possible, but you've left yourself very little room for error if you're Aranda and the Bears. And I think more so than the losses in this current team and wherever this season takes us, there is a much bigger, larger, big picture conversation to have about just the state of the emotions of the fan base and kind of the feelings around the program at this time. It's just a weird place when you lose games, and it's just a very familiar place that we seem to revisit every so often, every year, at least once or twice the last few years with this staff and just the way things are headed ultimately. I still believe that Dave Aranda is a good coach. I totally understand where people are coming from that are on the other side, and some have been parked there for like 3-4 years now at this point. I'm not ready to write the season off because they lost a close game to Arizona State, but I also don't deny and pretend like those who have other types of feelings and are kind of just pissed off that they find themselves in a familiar position once again. I don't blame them because I understand where they're coming from when you see losses like this occur on far too frequent of a basis, especially at home. So a very frustrating loss, a loss that didn't have to be a loss, but you can't protect the football, and more often than not, you're going to lose games. And I think that's what you saw with Baylor on Saturday night. Encouraging stuff from the defense, holding up a lot better than I think maybe we expected even just a couple of weeks ago, but still have to get better. Can't have costly penalties, can't give up the big play as they did with a busted coverage late in the game. You throw, obviously, the big gain by Arizona State there into the flock of complaints, I think, from this game, along with the penalty, along with the turnovers, along with penalties. You can't give up busted coverages in crunch time, and Baylor guilty of that as well. So that's a bad combination that's going to cost you in just about every game, especially when you're playing a team the caliber of an Arizona State. So penalties, turnovers, busted coverages, you can't have those things and expect to be victorious more often than not. So a lot to clean up for the Bears. Oklahoma State coming up this weekend in Stillwater. does make that look like a little bit more of a challenge, but 20.5-point favorites are the Bears. Think about that. 2-2, coming off a loss. The fan base kind of feels like they're a little bit down right now, and yet they are plus 3 touchdown favorites, or about 3 touchdown favorites on the road against Oklahoma State. You think people are down in the dumps around Waco? Just wait till you get up to Stillwater and start talking to some locals up there, some Oklahoma State alumni. They are in a bad way, and Baylor should be able to go in there and take advantage of that. They are a more talented team. They are a better coach team at the moment. They are a better team overall based on every single metric there is. The Bears should be 3-2 after this weekend. But if they find themselves committing penalties in inopportune times, turning the football over willy-nilly, and allowing busted coverage, big plays at the worst possible times, they could find themselves on the end of a very, very ugly loss. So you think it felt bad after Arizona State. Imagine going and losing as 3 touchdown favorites up in Stillwater. I don't expect that's what we'll be talking about next week. I think we'll be talking about the Bears winning their first Big 12 game. And I think that there's a lot of optimism still surrounding this team, as easy as it is to get down in the dumps after every single loss. I'm just built a little bit differently. Don't let the highs get too high or the lows get too low. But I certainly understand why people who went to yet another game at McLean Stadium only to walk away disappointed are feeling a little bit low after this last effort. Long way to go. A lot to like about this team, but they got to clean up the mistakes, or this is just the first of many Big 12 losses we're going to be talking about moving forward. Still feel great about 6 wins and more. Still feel great about the postseason. Still even feel okay about their Big 12 title chances, because there are a lot of games left to be played and a lot of carnage to ensue around them as well in this league. But it starts with them and cleaning up the mistakes that we saw this past weekend that proved so costly. Need to see better play from Sawyer Robertson. Need to see more in terms of playing a clean game. Need to see them forcing more turnovers. Those things would go a long way as well into sometimes offsetting some of the mistakes that were made. Had an opportunity for a big win, blew it, and now it's on to the next one. And the Oklahoma State Cowboys, as down as any team in the Big 12 and maybe as down as any team in the country, don't take that for granted. Go in there, handle your business, play a clean game, and get out of there with a W. But mess around and make some of the same mistakes you did this past weekend. And doesn't matter who you are, who you're playing, or where you're playing, you're going to find yourself in a losing situation more often than not. So looking to a big bounce back for the Bears. Some things to like from this game, some things to clean up, as I mentioned. But 2-2, long way to go. And we'll see what awaits in Stillwater this upcoming weekend. For more on Baylor and the Big 12, an article and a video each week in your inbox. Again, sign up at 365sports.video. Until next time, I'm Craig Smoak, and this has been the Baylor Football 365 Sports Newsletter video here on the Smokestack College Football channel. Please hit like and subscribe.